Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Um, I'm Anthony Frame. I'm reading tonight, and I'm just going to wait a little bit and give people a little bit of time to show up before I start reading. So I hope everybody's having a good evening, and, hi, Aaron. Um, hope everybody is surviving this past week, and just all in all, I hope we have a better week coming up, and that everybody's doing good. I'm gonna give it about just a couple minutes, let people show up who might be running a little bit late, and then I'll start reading. I'm gonna read mostly from my new chapbook. This is called Where Wind Meets Wing. It's from Sibling Rivalry Press. You can pick it up there. Highly recommend it. And they've got a ton of other books and chapbooks, and they're all amazing. So check out the Sibling Rivalry website and um, buy lots and lots of books. Lots and lots of books. Um, let's see here. What else can I talk about while we're waiting? A lot of people know me mostly through my press Glass, so I'm going to give it a plug. www.glass-poem www.glass-poetry.com. We've got a lot of new things coming up. Um, the new chapbook is The Unbound Verses by Kwame Opoku-Duku. It's fabulous. It's coming out next month. October 15th is when it should come out. And we've got a lot of new ones also that have been out recently. They're all gorgeous. So you can check that out anytime you want. And I think I'm just going to get started now. Looks like we got a few people here. So thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you to Sundress Publications for running this reading series, and to a big thank you to Anna Black for kind of navigating me through as we were getting ready for this. Oh, thank you, Nikki, for putting up the link for Glass. So I'm going to start off. This book, it is a lot about my experiences working as a exterminator, and I actually have another one of those. It's called To Gain the Day from Redbird Chapbooks. This one's more about me kind of transitioning from being a kind of an academic, from working in as a teacher into becoming a exterminator. Whereas this one deals a lot more with, like, I don't know, environmentalism and faith and stuff like that. But there's one poem in here that's kind of a bridge between those, and I wanted to start off with that poem. So this is called How to Hurt a Fly. I wish you'd call so this sunlight can finally make sense. The automatic lights in my truck cutting off, the traffic clotting, and somewhere you are sleeping. I still remember my desk, students fanning the flies that bred beneath the floors. I told them there was nothing we could do. Fly control requires access to the source, a ruptured sewage line, a dead raccoon rotting in the crawl space. The sun splits these buildings as I sit in this traffic, and this morning the newspaper described the death of my former student, his body stripped in an abandoned alley. I know where you are, love. I was at your side, asleep, 5 hours ago, but I still need to hear you say nothing has changed. Litter and fallen leaves, and what do I remember except that he was lazy, that he bought his final paper. Sometimes it's like I'm falling in this stilled traffic, the way these few clouds seem wasted without rain. My cigarette rusted between my fingers, wondering if you're awake yet. It's possible to pinpoint the exact time of death based on the insects feeding on the body. Blowflies are the first to arrive. I remember his nosebleed. I remember him holding the door for a student with a wheelchair. I remember him enough to still remember his voice. Some days it's like I'm a fly, a quick hum without weight. So say no amount of punctuation could have saved him. Say you miss me too. Say the ruffled blanket isn't enough without my arms. The books I'll be too tired to talk about when I get home. The public radio news and the few dirty roach jobs you'll be too lonely to hear. Did we shred his papers before the last move? I want to remember your face as it wakes. I know I've asked so many times, but say it again. That light longs for something to touch. Tell me that when we fall, we'll fall like rain. Our rhythm too quiet to reveal what's left in our wake. We got quite a few people here now. Hi, everybody. I want to read this poem. This poem was commissioned. I volunteered for a project. This was a couple years ago, where over the course of a summer, they posted a poem every day, a number of poems every day. It was anytime somebody died in an altercation with the police. It included police shootings and shootings of police, but every time somebody died, they commissioned somebody to write a poem in response to that death within 24 hours. It was called the Lament for the Dead Project. Unfortunately, it's no longer available online. That site went down, but it is in this chapbook, and I wanted to read that. This is called From the Gospel of Bullets. We who are among you request return. The quick pulse in our flight no more than a gas station, a secured bathroom stall, drive-by graffiti. We want to wander, but our only strength is against gravity, and we need all our strength. We can't come out in peace. Once we tried to be water, but no one noticed, so we turned into a storm, a gale of hail. We couldn't flow, so we learned to ricochet like the tide. We will always be learning. We were children once, running through rain and counting clouds. We tested our hands with chalk and stones. Now we seek atonement, a word that means neither guilty nor innocent, but we receive only flesh and bone, occasionally Kevlar, or a scratched knee, a skinned rib. If our sorrows can be your sorrows, then maybe we'll learn to be controlled, stilled. Forgive the mothers for their wails which could not come out in peace. God, they've learned, is a smoke-filled chamber, powder and ash, holes in a car door or an arm or chest. Our dreams are of a child dancing, her hair made from dandelion stems, her breath carrying the quick smell of clovers. We long for windy fields. Our dreams are filled with wind. Our dreams are scoured by night, by lust and love and quiet cells longing. We've waited all our lives for the sunrise. This is the world we were brought into, blood and thick fluid, fire and rain. This is our legacy. We measure ourselves in seconds. We dance, but only know 2 steps. Forgive us. Forgive our lack of control, our desire to breathe. Our bale is too steep. Our bale is dirt, freshly dug and soft from dew. Forgive our love of all things wet. We want a hand strong enough to hold us back. Once we start, we cannot come out in peace. Forgive us the holes we've made, O Lord, so we may forgive you yours. I'm going to read a couple more from this chapbook, and then I'm going to read a newer poem. But I wanted to read this one mostly because I haven't really ever heard it out loud that much, and so I'm kind of just curious to see how it sounds. Hope everyone's having fun. This one, I don't really need to introduce it. The title will introduce it, I think, pretty well. So, this is called Poem Composed Entirely from the First Lines of Poems by Emily Dickinson. The day undressed herself like rain. It sounded till it curved, a darting fear, a pomp, a tear, a science, so the savants said. Behind me dips eternity, a cap of lead across the sky, meeting by accident. The sun and fog contested. Of course I prayed, not knowing when the dawn will come. Had I not seen the sun gathered into the earth as if some arctic flower, could I then shut the door? My Maker, let me be. Take all away from me. These are the nights that beetles love. These are the days when birds come back. I cannot meet the spring unmoved, a slash of blue, the long sigh of the frog. Talk not to me about summer trees. How many flowers fail in the wood? Ah, moon and star, bring me the sunset in a cup. Blazing in gold and quenching in purple, a light exists in spring, over and over like a tune. I'll tell you how the sun rose, lest this be heaven. Indeed, I suppose the time will come. It bloomed and dropped, a single noon. It tossed and tossed, a little madness in the spring, trudging to Eden, looking backward. Take your heaven further on. Blossoms will run away. Perhaps I asked too large. Perhaps I robbed the woods. High from the earth I heard a bird out of sight. What of that? How dare the robin sing? Split the lark and you'll find the music. I saw no way. The heavens were stitched. A clock stopped. This is my letter to the world. Good morning, midnight. Experiment to me. I shall keep singing. Bind me. I still can sing. That was a poem literally of just lines from the first lines of Emily Dickinson poems. It was a lot less fun to write than I thought it would be, but it was fun. I'm lying. It was a lot of fun just to play around with those. Excuse me. One more from this chapbook, and I might have time for one last one after that. But this one, pardon me. This one, I wrote this for my very good friend and mentor, Rain Arroyo, a few years after he passed away. And Rain always used to say that if he came back, he wanted to come back as a bird. And at the University of Toledo here, at University Hall, they have this big bell tower, and at the top of it, the peregrine falcons roost and nest, and the hatchlings, hatch. So shortly after Rain died, like a few days after he died, the eggs hatched, and the school named one of the birds, one of the hatchlings, after Rain. They named it Rain. And a few years after that, I ended up writing this poem. It's called Dirge with Birds, for Rain. Don't say you'll keep me alive with my words. I wish this ink was boiled hawthorn bark, black embers dripping off a feather pen. Who called the birds harbingers? And of what? One perched on my windowsill last week. Then I cut my thumbnail while chopping onions. The neighbor's girl learned to say flood in French. It won't stop raining. What bird was it, watching me through the window? A raven, if I had it my way. Poe's companion. The unclean one the priest said abandoned Noah and his dove. But I know the raven is Mahakala, the Dharma's protector, housing and feeding that first infant llama, cooing him to sleep as robbers ravaged the village. And harbinger comes from herberger, to shelter. My yard collects loose pigeons. So many signs, omens from muted gods. And were they doves, I'd be more hopeful, like the ones at church, where I learned to read. You want me to know the power of words. You tell me their roofs, their chandeliers, their feathers. Words, you say. You repeat it 2 more times. I say never quote Shakespeare until you've met him in person, as I will, someday, if the priests are right. If I'm right, then I've already met him, the shade crow who startled me in the night to say hearts aren't nocturnal. And Whitman, where are you? Not in the grass, please. Today be a tree used to create, construct, a house, a shed, a seed bucket, a frame or casket, any shelter to cover this book. Grass is too soft, restful, too easily buried by asphalt, then cracked, patched, repeated. Too quick to flood, our headstones breaking the lake's surface like fingers. The new lake over which the ravens must disappear. Lake which comes from to drain. When I'm done, I'll be done with the ground, gladly. Let me drift with the clouds, sent forth to and fro. I'll return, passing over your roof, perched above the bed, holding this grim language, giving it back black as ash, dropping it like a feather. So, I got a couple minutes left. I can read one more, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So, think of ways to stump me. I'm not good on the spot, but I'll try my best to answer your questions. A while back, a friend of mine asked me to write a poem for her journal. They were putting out an issue of 90s pop culture poems, and she asked me if I would write a Tori Amos poem. And I'm not that good at writing things on the spot, but I figured I'd give it a shot, and I thought what I would do is I took all the titles of every song from the Tori Amos Dewdrop in Boulder bootleg, which is like the best live album bootleg you can possibly get. Figured I'd take all the titles from that and put them in the poem, and that would give me some structure. I could build a poem out of that. Then I learned that it's really hard to write a poem with the word Tallulah in it, so I was having a little trouble. But I was plodding away with it until one day a young man walked into Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School and shot, I believe, 17 of his fellow classmates. And the poem kind of took a turn after that. But it turned into this. It's called Obeyed with the Dewdrop in Boulder bootleg. Or, after the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, I turn off the world and try to hide inside my earbuds. You can find this on Drunk Monkey's website. Fallen trees and a little ice and half-flooded streets point my way toward the Ohio-Indiana border, an hour-and-a-half drive, with the sun still on the other side of the globe, and I can't deal with any more NPR. I know there will be protests, signs, big block letters in a dozen colors, but here there are just stars and clouds, a few constellations I don't recognize. Here all I see are roadkill deer, pistols, rifles. Here in my head, last night's storm still blazes. A friend from China messages me to say God is too cruel, and I know I should respond, but instead I listen to Tallulah again. Through the applause, a man yells, "I love you, Myra." I shiver at the power of naming. How many names? Piano Girl, Myra, Tori, Cornflake Girl. Good names for constellations. There are 17 new names to learn, but I feel like I'm on fire, looking for simpler stars, for better constellations, for Daniel, the running boy, for Marianne, the beauty queen. Neil says there's a library filled with all the books we've ever dreamed. Can there be one where there are no storms marching in the night, no landslides of running children? I make it to the last diner at the edge of the state. The pregnant waitress hums an improv tune. Drowning out the Fox News morning show, and I'm grateful for her distracted oblivion. The way she says last night's lightning was amazing. Grace is the horse on her shirt, the gallop away from everything, nothing, wondering if the cells dividing in her womb are an act of resistance or negligence. At some point the sun will find us, but the price is blood, honey, milkweed, and more blood. Precious things with triggers and rivers and rushing legs. You hold what you can when the world is filled with water, but all you have are fingers. When you can't see how to catch this tear in your hand. The only constellation I can see is of me and a gun and snow. Is it snow falling around me? If I hold my hands out, will anything be caught? A light sneeze, a shirt covered in improv holes, the black trench coat I wore in high school, a bulletproof backpack. The sun, is it hurt as it finally turns the corner on us? As it opens its mouth, can it just pull us in, snow and skin and broken hearts, melting on the sun's tongue? I can't deal with sight, with vision, so I turn toward the remaining snow. I whisper, "Hey Jupiter, is anything going to change? Jupiter, tell me, still, could it be a pretty good year? Jupiter, tell me, how fast do we have to run?" All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming out and listening. Those are some depressing poems. Hopefully you enjoyed them, though. I'm gonna turn over to the Q&A. So start typing any questions you might have. What I'm told is that it's going to take a few minutes for the questions to appear. So I'm just going to kind of fill up some space before we get to there, because I don't know how long they're going to pop up on my end. So what I'm going to say over the next few minutes is today is September 30th. Today's September 30th. We are about 5 weeks away from the midterm elections. So I'm just going to tell everybody right now, if you're not yet, go get registered to vote. If you are registered to vote, double check to make sure you are registered to vote. I love my state, but as some of you might know, Ohio has been cutting people from the voting rolls like crazy. And last year, the Supreme Court upheld their policy and said it's okay to do that. I don't know if other states have started doing it because of that. So if you're not registered, go get registered if you still can. It's going to depend state by state how long you have till then. If you think you are registered, then go ahead and double check on that. Get registered, vote, get your friends to vote. If you can vote early in your state, go vote early. That way you can spend all of election day going out there and getting your friends to the polls. Don't wait to vote. You got it. The earlier you can do it, the better, because stuff might come up, emergencies might happen, you know. And like Grandma Walton always says, you don't plan for emergencies. So vote early, vote often. And vote often means vote and then get your friends to vote. So looks like we got some questions coming up. Kaya asks, Kaya? I'm sorry, I probably butchered your name there. Sorry about that. Kaya asks, what have been your artistic obsessions this past year? That's a really good question. My artistic obsessions for this past year have been mostly related to glass. I've done a lot more reading of poetry and a lot more of like making the chapbooks and putting out the journal over the past year. But I'm in this weird space for me artistically where the new chapbook is out. I had the previous chapbook that was out, To Gain the Day. Those two chapbooks are kind of sister chapbooks. And so I've been doing a lot more of looking at my work and figuring out how it works together to try and see if I can pull some of the things from these, turn them into either a new manuscript, another full length, or maybe help them push me into the next full length. So my writing has been in a weird space where I'm not producing a lot of new material. And what I have been writing has been a lot more political. Because, you know, life is what it is right now. So I'd say if I have any artistic obsessions lately, I don't know. It's definitely still roaches and anger at politicians and hope for a better future. Hi, Aunt Becky. Thank you. Hi, Sarah. Are there any other questions anybody might have? A lot of reactions going on there. Thank you. Nikki. Hi. Um, those of you watching the comments coming up should know Nikki Metchler is the editor-in-chief at Pork Belly Press, and she is fantastic human being who puts out some amazing chapbooks, and we absolutely are so lucky in Ohio to have her. So she asked me, how do you balance your own writing with the business of making those rad chaps via glass? Um, yeah, I don't. Um, I don't balance it very well. Um, I do the best. I try to take some time every day to at least think about my own work, whether it's jotting some lines down, jotting some images down, trying to think about just rhythmically some language stuff that might work in my head. Um, but when I what also then happens though is I'm always tempted to go back to glass. I'm always tempted to go to reading those submissions. Obviously, there's the work of actually making the chapbooks and getting them in the mail, which I'm usually a little behind on. I'm a little behind on right now. So if any of you've ordered something recently and haven't gotten it yet, that's probably why. But I do think it's important to try and take a little bit of time. Um, I'm not somebody who thinks you have to write every day to be a writer. I've never really subscribed to that. I like a lot better what Saeed Jones says, which is that it's a lot more important to read every day. So I try to do that, and I try to. I learn so much from the work that I do with glass, from reading all those submissions, that really helps me understand what I'm doing, and giving it also gives me kind of goals of what I'd love to do. So they do kind of work together, but I like to try and take some time when I can, as much as I can, to really just focus on my work, um, even if it's just like 5-10 minutes while I'm in the truck waiting for a customer to show up. Just to sit, and it's not about other people's work, but I allow it to be about me. It's a great question. Sarah writes, you get so many chapbook subs and have published some wonderful books. What draws you to the ones you ultimately select? It's also a very good question. So, I'm as an editor, or I don't know, not as an editor, as a gatekeeper, which unfortunately, I mean, there's no other way of describing what I do as a publisher. But I'm really, I think I'm more instinctual. Um, I I kind of I read every, like when we do the chapbook subs, I read all of them at least two, most at least 3 times, and then a lot of them I read a lot more than that as I'm trying to whittle it down. Um, but I do tend to go with my gut. Like, does this work grab me? Um, I'm looking at language. I'm trying to think about, I'm looking to, is this a beautiful chapbook? Um, I look at, for the chapbooks, a lot of what I look at is how the poems work together. I'm not that interested in kind of just best of collections. I'm much more interested in a cohesive collection. A great example, I happen to have it here because I want everybody to read it because it's brilliant. Adiba Talukder's book, What Is Not Beautiful, is just this wonderful collection that every poem works together. Every poem works on its own, but they also work together and create basically one. I think this about actually ended up being about 40 pages, but one like 40-page poem. Um, and to me, that cohesion for a manuscript helps me figure out if I really want to select a manuscript. But when it gets down there, when I've gone from about, I think last time I got a little over 500 submissions, I had to whittle that down to 4. Um, Once I'm down to like 10, 20 submissions, it's almost impossible. Um, at that point, I usually each year I end up with at least 20, usually a lot more, that I'd be honored to publish. and then I've got to just make some choices, and they're the hardest choices to break it down to come down to those um, last few submissions and make those last few selections. But if a chapbook stays with me, you know, Adiba's was one of the first ones that came in um, during that submission period, and by the end of the submission period, once I've read through everything, and that year we got about 400, I was still thinking about what is not beautiful. The same is true of the book that came out before it. I think I have that one here too. Yeah, um, Melissa Atkins. Melissa Atkinson Mercer's Ghost Exhibit is another great example. It's actually one long poem in sections, so it starts off 1.1 and then it goes to 1.2, 2.1. So it's a sequence than a series rather than multiple poems. But that was also came in on like day 2 of a 30-day reading period, and was still haunting me 2 months later when I was making my final decisions. So I want to be able to say, if you do this, that will, you know, get an editor's attention. But I don't think there's an answer to that. It's more of just doing your work, and it will shine through once it's in the hands of the right editor and the right press. Excuse me. Oh, Barton wrote, "What is not beautiful?" Yes, I totally agree. Um, Barton Smock has been a big promoter of that chapbook, and I'm very appreciated. Nikki asks, "Any chance of a chap of your Tory poems soon?" Um, I have 2 Tory poems out there. I've thought about it like a chapbook. I was actually thinking about it for Nikki's press when she was doing her last micro chapbook um, submission period for Pork Belly. But I still only have the 2 poems, and I don't know how to put more in there. But I'm not gonna say no, because it could happen. It could, if the poems find me, I'll write them, and then maybe I'll find a home for the poems for the chapbook. Um, I definitely won't rule it out. It's possible. Um, all right. Oh, Nikki wrote a long thing. I gotta see more buttons. Sorry about the shutter vision going on. Oh, Nikki wants me to write more Tory poems, and also wants to tell everybody to do your own thing and let it find its editor. I really can't stress that enough. Just do your thing, and your work will find the home. Um, the best piece of advice I ever got. This was from Rain, and I'll throw this out there before I kind of say goodnight to everybody, unless another question comes up. But the best piece of advice I ever got from Rain was when I was writing and submitting, and it wasn't getting published, it wasn't getting accepted, but you know, I might get a nice note, or I might just get a flat rejection. He just kept saying, "Do your thing, write your work, and it'll find the right home." And he said, more often than not, um, it's the editors who are behind, not you. Um, he said, more often than not, you're sending your work out, and you're just too far ahead of the editors, and they give them time; they'll catch up to you. So keep doing your work, and y'all find what you want. Um, but it's about being honest and authentic and being yourself. Because if you want, you can go out there and copy, you know, the style and voice of, you know, the hot popular poets, and that might get you a couple poems published. But if you want to really be a poet and keep being a poet and really go far, like, you just got to be yourself and do your own thing. All right. Cool. Um, then I'll say thank you again to everybody for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it. And I saw this on Twitter yesterday or the day before. Somebody wrote in big all caps, "Buy the chapbooks, buy all the chapbooks." So go find your favorite small press, micro press chapbook places, and buy a whole bunch of chapbooks, because I love chapbooks, and I think they're awesome. So you can read them in one sitting, and you can carry them in your pocket or your purse. So that's pretty awesome. Thanks everybody for coming out. I hope you had fun.